Hello, it's Alpha here, and we are back with some PvP content for AFK Journey. So I decided to make an updated regular arena tier list because it's been a while since I made my last tier list, and there have been quite a few new heroes added to the game. So today I'm going to be sharing that list. So yeah, this tier list is gonna be focused on regular arena only, and especially the defense setups. So some of these heroes definitely can be used for attacking, even if they are like lower on the tier list for the defense setup. Just keep that in mind. And also keep in mind that we're not going to be talking about Supreme Arena really in this tier list, so some of these heroes are definitely better in the Supreme Arena setting than on what they may appear on this tier list. Because especially for regular arena you only need 5 heroes, but for Supreme Arena you actually need like 15 heroes, so there is a lot more room to use other heroes as well. Yeah, and the way that I've done this tier list is maybe a little bit different from your typical tier list. I've done it separately for each of the different factions, so let's just get started with the Lightbearers, and I'm going to explain how to view this list. So here we have the Lightbearers, and I've separated the heroes into 2 different rows. So the top row is going to be for all of the S rarity heroes, and the bottom row is going to be for all of the A rarity heroes. And in general, how you should be looking at this list is that from left to right are, in my opinion, the most usable heroes. And then you might be thinking, why is there this big gap between the 2 heroes? And that is simply because I think on the left side are the heroes that I would personally consider using when I'm building a defense setup, and then on the right side are the heroes that I probably would not really even consider when building a defense setup. So realistically, if I'm starting to build my defense setup, then I'm only looking at, if I'm looking at the Lightbearer heroes, I'm only looking at Siren, Rowan, Zaydi, and Hypogean. Yeah, that's how they are kind of arranged. And then you might notice that some of the heroes have kind of like frames around them. So some of the heroes have red frame and some of the heroes have yellow frame. And the heroes that have the red frame around them are, in my mind, more like attack focused heroes. So in some situations, even though they are like on the right side, I would consider using those heroes in attack situation. And then the yellow background around some of these heroes means that they are new heroes to this list, or like relatively new heroes. So that means that their position is not as like secure based on like experience. So for example, if I make a new tier list next month, then maybe their positions are more likely to move around than the not so new heroes, because I have more experience using those heroes. But yeah, their current position is just like based on my feeling about their usability. Yeah, so that's pretty much it when it comes to Lightbearers. Realistically, I would probably only consider using Siren out of these heroes in most situations. Now Zaydi might be usable, like there's so little testing done with her, so that I don't exactly know where she should be placed in this one. But yeah, Siren is definitely a great hero to use on defense setups. He can be used in pretty much any team. He has crowd control immunity at the start of the fight. He delays the enemy artifact from happening. He has AoE damage, does magic damage, and has long range, so he's very good. And then Rowan, I guess, technically could be used for defense setups, although I would personally probably not use him on defense setups that much. But he can be used for energy boosting some of your heroes, so for example, usually combined with Siren or Shemira, so that those heroes can ultimate faster, or maybe Cryonaya, for example. But outside of providing that energy boost, he's a little bit like lackluster. And now we also have a couple other energy boost hero options. So for example, Theodore and Pandora, I would say, are better options for energy boosting. So that maybe even reduces Rowan's usability a bit more. And he, in general, he is very squishy. He can't really like heal himself, for example. So he dies quite easily. So maybe you could even argue that Rowan should not be on the left side either. I think he is a bit better on like attack setups, because you don't really have to worry that much about like him surviving on the attack setups, because you can plan your team around him a bit better. And then on the red background we have some other like heroes that can technically be used for attack setups, like Walker, for example, or Atalanta or Vala. They can be used in some kind of like assassin type teams when you are trying to burst down the enemy team when you are on the attack side. And then for Faye, I added this bell run icon next to her. So I did some testing using Faye in combination with bell run, and I would say that those teams can work like relatively well, even on like defense setup. So that's why she's kind of like higher up on the right side, but still I would probably like not use that kind of defense setup that much, but that's why she is kind of like higher up on this one. Yeah, so the Mauler situation is a bit lacking when it comes to regular arena. Sandrock is maybe usable on the defense side of things. I'm not exactly sure right now which team would want to use him, so that's why he also has the yellow background. He also has red background, so combination of both, because I think he's probably better for attack team setups, but I could maybe see some use on the defense setup as well with him, because he can do some crowd control, and he provides the health boost, and then he kind of helps out with melee teams mostly, and melee teams are not really something that you usually have on the defense side of things, so that's kind of part of the issue. But if there was like a more melee focused defense setup, then he could fit into that team quite well because of the speed boost and destroying the walls. And then on the A rarity, we have Satrana, and Satrana is definitely, like, in my mind, the best Mauler hero for defense setups, so she can be really good when it comes to defense setups. I have kind of like marked this Bonnie symbol next to her because she works especially well with Bonnie, but she can even work in some teams without Bonnie. But I also have this letter T marked next to some heroes, so that indicates that they are kind of like team reliant heroes in my mind. So Satrana on her own doesn't really necessarily do that much, and she kind of needs a quite specific team to actually do well. But there are like a couple different teams that she can be used in, but the most common one is definitely combined with Bonnie, and then something like maybe even like Dunninger and Igor, for example, is one of the best defense teams in my mind that you can do right now. Then on the right side, we have some heroes with red background that can be used more on like attack setups. And I could maybe see some situations where you would want to use Shakir or Gerda on your defense team as well, but usually those heroes are not used, so that's why they are on the right side as well. Then we have the Wilder setups, so they have a bit more heroes that are on the usable side of things. Lily May is definitely a hero that is easy to use pretty much on any team. So she can interrupt ultimates, which can be really useful against some stuff like Siren or Shemira ultimates, for example. So she can be good for the defense setups. She can do like decent damage, and she's not as easy to kill because she has like a lot of skills that make her invulnerable during those skills. So she can definitely be a decent hero to use on the defense side of things. Then we have Tassi. Tassi is kind of like in an interesting spot because I would say, yeah, Tassi have red background because I think she's better on the attack side of things, but you could use her on the defense as well. Like I could see maybe two different setups where she would be usable. So in combination with Pandora, she can be very powerful. And then maybe in some kind of like immortal type team where you have hard to kill heroes combined with her, so something like Tailene and Saida and Igor or Athalia. But outside of those couple examples, I think she's nowadays kind of hard to use because she won't usually survive that well. Then we have Aaron. He's also more towards like attack type of hero, but I do see some people using him on the defense side of things, and he can definitely work on the defense side of things as well. He can be kind of used as like Lily May bait, so if you have some hero that you want to cast their ultimate, so for example Siren or Shemira once again, if you want those to cast their ultimate, you need someone to, if the enemy team brings Lily May, you need someone to ultimate before them. So that's where Aaron potentially comes in, so you can use Aaron, and if they use Lily May, your Aaron will be interrupted And if they don't use Lilimei, your Aaron can cast his ultimate, and that does still like decent amount of damage and groups up all of the enemies and like immobilize some of them. So it's up to your opponent at that point if they want to interrupt your Aaron or not. Then we have Pang, which is one of those heroes, new heroes, so definitely don't have enough experience to know exactly how good he is. But in general, heroes that have like crowd control immunity are like decent for arena. So Pang starts with crowd control immunity, and he can even give the crowd control immunity to some of your other heroes as well. So I could see definitely using him in some defense setups. And then we have Brian, who is also kind of like serving a similar role to what Aaron does. So you can use Brian as the Lilimei interruption bait. And then if they don't have Lilimei who interrupts your Brian, he can now do like decent damage because of he recently got his enhanced force upgrade, which increased his damage while his ultimate is active. So now he can do like decent damage with the ultimate. Then on the A rarity, we have Theodor, who is great at giving like energy to your key heroes, and he can be quite tanky and do decent damage himself. So he's definitely a hero that can be used in combination with something like Siren, for example. And then I still have Ulmus and Damien in here, but I don't really see them being used on the defense side as much anymore either. But like sometimes you can still use them, and Ulmus is usually only used if you are using Aaron. I guess you could argue that they should be on the right side as well, but yeah, I have them here still for now. Then we have the Graveborn heroes, and I think right now Graveborn is kind of like the best faction when it comes to regular arena. They have, I guess, about the same amount of heroes here as the Wilders, but I think in general these heroes are a bit more stronger than some of the Wilder heroes. So the S rarity, we have Igor as the top spot. Now Igor is very like team reliant. He's not gonna be the one who like carries your team, so you need to build your team around him. He's the one who like stalls the fight so that your damage dealers can kill the enemy. But even for that, you actually need some quite specific damage dealers for it to work. So usually he's combined with something like Bonnie or Taylene, Satrana or Saida or Athalia, and then you add Igor as the stall hero in the team while your other damage dealers kill the enemy team. Yeah, and then on this second spot you have Shemira. Now Shemira is probably the most used hero when it comes to regular arena and normal arena, and she is definitely very powerful hero. You could maybe argue that she should be ahead of Igor, but like it doesn't really matter that much because they're like the spots 1 and 2 anyway. But in my mind, Igor is slightly better because he belongs into the very best defense setup that I know of, and Shemira does not belong into that team. But anyway, Shemira definitely very powerful. If you can survive until she ultimates, the fight will most likely go in your way. So that's kind of like the idea of using her in your defense setups. And then we have Ludovic, who is like the best PvP healer. He has high burst healing potential at the start of the fight. So usually a lot of the burst damage happens right when the fight starts. And then Ludovic can heal through that damage. And then he also is crowd control immune at the start of the fight, so that helps him survive a bit better. And then he can also stun some of the melee heroes once they walk into his healing area. So sometimes you can stun stuff like Athalia, for example. Once Athalia dashes into your team, she will be stunned by Ludovic's healing area. So a lot of good uses for him. And then we have 2 like tank options for Graveborn. So we have Damon and Thoran. And yeah, I think Damon is probably the better option because he can provide some shielding for one of your key heroes, and he can actually do a lot of damage himself while being kind of like the tank hero of the team. And he also has some crowd control with the fear ability that he has. And then on the A level, we also have one of the best damage dealers, Bonnie, and she is still used in a lot of defense teams. And then we have Niru, who someone recently got his Enhanced Force upgrade, which made him a lot better. So he used to be definitely on the right side of things, but now he's very good because he casts his ultimate at the start of the fight. So if the enemy once again has Lily May will interrupt him instead of your Samira, for example. So that's the main reason why you want to use him. But now with his Enhanced Force upgrade, he can also actually do like decent amount of damage, and he can provide some healing for your team as well. And he is like a semi-counter to Igor to some extent, so he can destroy the Igor's tombstones quite well. And then we have Kalan, who is just in general like a decent tank for protecting your team that you can use in combination with like heroes like Samira, for example. Then on the right side, I would maybe highlight a little bit the Sylvina and Nara. So they are not really heroes that you would use for your defense setups, but when it comes to attack setups, they can be really powerful options if enemy team is placed in such a way that you can use them to kill some key heroes. Like you can sometimes kill the enemy Pandora with those heroes before the Pandora can actually do anything, or you can kill something like enemy Bonnie. Yeah, and then lastly, we have Celestial and Hypogean heroes and Dimensional heroes. I combined those two together because Celestial Hypogeans don't obviously have like A-tier heroes. So for Celestial Hypogeans, I think the best hero to some extent is Dunninger for defense setups, because he has the ability to block all of the ultimates from happening, and a lot of the teams are based on casting ultimates quickly, especially now with Pandora, when you can guarantee that your hero like casts the ultimate after like 4 seconds. But then if you use Dunninger, the ultimate obviously won't do that, because Dunninger can delay casting ultimates quite a lot. And in general, even without Pandora, a lot of teams are using, like we said, Samira, who has powerful ultimate, or Siren, or both of those two. So then them not being able to cast the ultimates obviously makes the teams a lot slower and easier to defend against. Now, Dunninger alone won't be able to win you the fight, and obviously you don't probably want to use heroes that are reliant on their ultimates with Dunninger, because your heroes can't cast their ultimates either. I mean, one of your heroes can cast ultimate, but obviously you have to plan your team around using Dunninger. So that's why he has the T mark. So he's kind of like a team reliant hero. Then we have Athalia, who is just crazy at dealing damage, and she can destroy enemy teams even after being defeated. So you just need to build a team that can survive until she kills everyone. So definitely easy to use in a lot of different teams. And I think Saida is probably like the third best PvP Celestial Hypogean, because she works in combination with something like Athalia, for example, quite well. And she also provides some protection for your heroes, because she gives 2 of your heroes a shield at the start of the fight, and then you can also even use her kind of like as a semi-tank for your team. So if the enemy team focuses their damage on Saida at the start of the fight, your other team is going to be a bit more safer, and then she will just resurrect back into the fight, and then hopefully cast a couple more ultimates. And yeah, that's just how she works. So I think she's probably like quite flexible and in general like good hero in a lot of teams. And then we have Kulu, who is able to cast the wall into the fight. So especially if more like melee focused teams become more meta, then her value goes up even further, because she like completely denies some melee teams because they're not able to get past her wall. But yeah, to some extent she is like team reliant hero, because you obviously don't want to use your own melee heroes in combination with her, because they won't be able to participate in the fight as well. So you kind of have to like plan your team around using her. But definitely powerful option. Then we have Taylene. She's still like good option for some PvP teams. Like combining her with Igor and Bonnie, for example, is a good team. And she can work in like the Dunninger Igor Bonnie team as well. Then we have Twins. They are still like decent option for defense setups. A lot of people are using them because they have built them for PvE, for example. And yeah, for some teams definitely can be used. But maybe seeing a little bit less use. At some point they were like used in most teams, but nowadays With Pandora, for example, they don't maybe work as well with Pandora because oftentimes you would want the same hero that goes into Pandora box to be in the Twins link as well. Then we have Daniel and Cryonaya, who are both like, in my mind, like okay option when it comes to defense setups. Definitely better for attacking setups, but for defense setups they can be used now with Pandora so that they can cast their ultimates fast, and those ultimates can oftentimes win you the fight. But the issue obviously is that enemy team is probably able to find a way to prevent that ultimate from happening if they know what they're doing, so that's why they're not as good in my mind. Now Dionel has a bit more advantage than Cryonaya, because even if his ultimate is prevented, he can still do like decent amount of damage without his ultimate, with his like other abilities and auto attacks. So and Belran is kind of like in between them. I did do some testing with Belran on the Pioneer server as like my defense setup, and he was definitely able to win some fights, but he needs a very specific team kind of like build around him, and also I think he struggles against some of the common heroes that people are using, like Shemira, for example. And yeah, Pandora is the best dimensional hero when it comes to defense setups, but honestly, I don't think those are the best teams, because it's, like I said, it's quite easy to interrupt that ultimate from happening, and then if you kind of like planning your team around that ultimate happening, then it's not going to go that well for you. But they can definitely be still like decent teams, especially if you lack some of the other options to use instead of like Pandora, Shemira, then yeah, it can still be good defense setup. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. This is the whole tier list. Hopefully this was helpful, and obviously if you have some ideas or you think some heroes should be elsewhere, please leave a comment and we can talk about it. I'm not gonna promise that I'll change it, but it's always good to get other opinions as well. This is just based on my experience when it comes to like using these heroes in the regular arena. It's definitely hard for one player to have enough experience for all of the heroes to say how good they are. But yeah, also based on these lists, I kind of like made this image about like PvP store, like which heroes I would maybe focus on buying from the PvP stores. They are kind of like in order from, once again, from left to right in like the priority. But with the seasonal tokens, I think you could buy any of those heroes and be fine. I mean, maybe Tassi not as much, but any of the other 4 heroes are really great for PvP. I guess you could even buy like Bonnie is definitely good hero to buy, but I would say that I would personally probably not buy that many like A rarity heroes with these currencies, because you can add Bonnie to your like wish list, and then there are not as many like A tier heroes that are great to have on your wish list, so you can just like kind of like leave Bonnie on your wish list and get her that way. And then Siren and Rowan is kind of in a similar situation. That's why they are more towards the right side of things, that even though Siren is maybe really good option and Rowan is maybe better option than Haven, for example, you can just add Rowan and Siren to your wish list, because there are not that many like Lightbearer heroes that are good for your wish list, so then you can get them that way rather than using your these currency to buy those heroes. So yeah, then here are just like some team examples as to like what kind of teams you could build out of those heroes. But oftentimes a lot of these heroes are kind of like changeable between each other, so like instead of Brian you could use Aaron or Niru, for example, or instead of Damon you could use maybe Toran or Callan, or like instead of Theodore you could maybe use Rowan. For your Pandora you could use Shemira, or you could use Cryonaya or whatever. You get the idea. But these are just like some examples as to like what kind of teams you could build out of those heroes.